Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating concept from our source material. We're going to explore the hidden mechanics behind why our help so often backfires, and look at the surprisingly mathematical path to true professional mastery. Let's uncover exactly why our well-intentioned guidance sometimes completely misses the mark.
Okay, let's start with an incredibly relatable problem. You see a peer struggling, right? You know exactly what they need, so you step in with a piece of advice. But instead of gratitude, you get hit with resentment. Or worse, they go and do the exact opposite of what you suggested. It's such a baffling, frustrating dynamic. So why exactly does this happen?
Well, the source actually explains this through what they call a fundamental law of nature. And the rule is remarkably simple. Do not speak when not asked. Offering uninvited input, that isn't teaching. It's actually overstepping a natural boundary. When we offer unsolicited advice, we really aren't helping. We're actively bringing negative consequences upon ourselves.
Here's a quick roadmap of how we'll break this down today. First up, the unsolicited advice trap. Second, the 70-30 competence rule. Third, digested versus bitter knowledge. Fourth, the professional stagnation trap. And finally, achieving true mastery. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the unsolicited advice trap. Think about it like this. When advice isn't requested, the listener has absolutely zero readiness to absorb it. You're speaking purely because you have a desire to speak, not because they have a desire to learn. You're dictating, not consulting. And because they haven't actually asked for your help, your words just bounce right off a brick wall of annoyance. It instantly creates friction instead of enlightenment.
Moving on to section 2, the 70-30 competence rule.
Now, this is where it gets super interesting. The source reveals this mathematical reality about competence, calling it the 70-30 rule. Basically, no matter your field, whether you're a teacher or a highly specialized professional, you enter it at exactly 70% readiness. You are not a finished product on day one. That remaining 30%? That's a critical knowledge gap that you literally have to earn and learn while on the job. So what does this mean? It creates a really crucial audience hierarchy. Since you're starting at a 70% baseline, you can only effectively guide people who fall into that 30% beginner gap beneath you. Those folks, they'll naturally seek you out, ask questions, and be genuinely grateful. But if you try to advise people who are equal to or above you, they're not going to ask for your input. And if you try to force it, they will simply tell you to mind your own business.
Let's look at why that is in section 3, digested versus better knowledge.
I love this sensory metaphor from the source. Think of knowledge exactly like food. It actually needs time to ferment before it's digestible for anyone else. That 70% baseline you studied just to get your foot in the door, that is fully digested. It's safe, nourishing guidance that you can easily feed to beginners so they can consume it safely and grow. But if you try to advise your advanced peers using that top 30%, the knowledge you haven't fully processed yourself yet, it's literally like serving someone unripe food. Your peers won't thank you for it. They're going to complain that your advice is bitter, salty, sour, and just totally uncomfortable to consume. This is exactly why giving advice beyond your true digested competence always triggers such a negative reaction. Which brings us right into section 4. The professional stagnation trap. Let's look at how this plays out in a typical career journey. Year 1, a professional is highly effective because they're strictly guiding beginners. But around year 5, those beginners graduate. The professional starts dealing with advanced peers and much more complex dynamics. If they haven't been keeping up with their own self-study during this time, friction begins. And by year 10, they hit a brutal wall of resentment. Because they stopped studying but kept trying to force unfermented advice onto advanced audiences, they face outright rebellion. The audience begins to directly challenge their authority. The source notes that this is exactly when the whispers start. Are you really a professor? Are you really a pastor? The respect just vanishes, all because your competence hasn't kept pace with your seniority. This right here is the stagnation trap. It catches professionals who get way too comfortable leaning on their job title, mistakenly thinking their 70% starting knowledge was the finish line. The second you stop studying, your ability to guide anyone other than a total beginner completely evaporates. You're left relying purely on a title rather than true competence. So, how do we fix this? Let's wrap up with section 5, achieving true mastery.
Because the ultimate goal here is hitting that 100% confidence mark. We want to transform from a 70% practitioner, who is essentially still practicing and figuring things out, into a true, unblocked master of the field. We're talking about someone who has zero blockages and can smoothly guide anyone who crosses their path without causing any of that bitter friction.
The secret to doing this, it's honestly just humility. You don't need to know everything on day one, but you absolutely must embrace continuous self-study. While you're teaching beginners using your 70% base, you have to actively study that remaining 30% on the job. Keep fermenting new knowledge. That way, you're always one step ahead, elevating your own understanding as your audience grows. So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on before you offer your very next piece of advice. Ask yourself, who are you trying to teach today? Did they actually ask for your help? And most importantly, have you finished your own 30% of studying, or are you about to serve them bitter knowledge? Keep learning, let your competence speak for itself, and everything else will follow. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.